Before we dive into this episode, I just want to let you know if you want to get access to episodes before anybody else, head on over to patreon.com/concerts that made us. And as a bonus, you'll get access to videos of some of the episodes and a host of other benefits. We've also teamed up with Band Builder Academy to offer you 10% off their membership. Details of both can be found in the show notes below.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down, the greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Hello everybody, this is Keanan Eksteen and you're listening to Concerts That Made Us.
It's holidays, I know I've seen it all, might be just a dream you asked me to, so here it is, I'll show you what it's all about. Who is he? People say, come and see me, a part of my day. And you walk through the maze of me. It's holidays, I know I've seen it all, might be just a dream you asked me to, so once again I'll show you what it's all about. Who is he? People say, come and see me, a part of my day. And you walk through the maze of me. Who is he? Asking every day, talking to the mirror the same way. I can't find my way through the maze of me. Who is he? People say, come and see me, a part of my day. And you walk through the maze of me. Who is he? People say, come and see me, a part of my day. And you walk through the
Keanan Eksteen, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a huge honor to be here. Very excited.
I'm delighted to have you now. I'm looking forward to diving into your music. So you released your album, your debut album, Golden Fever, on July 8th. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, so the album Golden Fever, we've been working on that for about a year or whatnot. Very excited to have it out there. It's our first full body of work where we can showcase, what exactly a little bit more depth towards, well, in contrast to our EP, where we had a few songs and then we played it safe and all that jazz. And this one, I think, is just something to show that we have a bit more depth, diversity, and yeah, I'm just excited to have it out there and have the world going strong.
Yeah, yeah. And, debut albums, they're a major statement. What do you think this record says about you?
It's more of answering the question of there's usually the question that I get a lot is what genres are you going for? What all that the sound and whatnot. And this one we put together so that I can almost answer that without having to answer it. Just to say that I can't tie myself to a specific sound. Here is this body of work. This is what we're starting with, and it's only gonna grow and expand from here on. But if I could sum it up in a sentence, I'd say just here is Keanan Eksteen, everybody.
Perfect, perfect. And what's your approach to songwriting? At 22 years of age, you've got major talent to be able to write the way you do.
Thank you very much, sir. I would say the process, it comes in drips and drabs of inspiration. The words, funny enough, lyrics and all that come rather easy. To me, the challenge is the melody, finding something that hooks, something that stays in your head, and then we flesh it out from there. But I'd say, yeah, I'd be fiddling around in the guitar, piano, or whatnot, come across something pretty, and then I start building onto that and have my words fill in from there. So I'd say, yeah, the hardest part to me is melody, and then let the words flow. Find your story.
I see. And your voice, it's a very distinctive voice, and it's one of those, I've heard it compared to George Ezra, and I can kind of see it a little bit, the deepness, I think. But it's one of those voices that if you heard it on the radio and had no idea what you looked like, you wouldn't picture you, And but how did you find your voice? How did you find your style?
That's an interesting question. I actually haven't thought about it. But if I can try and put a finger on it, I'd say because I started out with just playing guitar when I was 11. So my dad taught me some chords and whatnot, and I'd expanded a bit from there. Never had any singing lessons or anything professionally done, but I'd say this might sound strange, but impersonating voices. I've always been rather good with impersonations and whatnot. And then when I started singing, I was like, what if I try and impersonate, all these different voices until I found something, kind of like a middle, create your own with all these different inspirations and dialects and way of pronunciations and whatnot. And eventually it came across what I have today. I'm still trying to find different sounds and whatnot, growing all the way. If that explains it in a way that makes sense.
It does. I think you've definitely found a sweet spot for what works anyway. And the other day I was reading your bio and it kind of made my head spin. I mean, you've been performing for 2 years. Your track Dixie Clouds has over 100,000 streams. The music video, 410,000 views. You've appeared on the Espresso TV show and your songs are playlisted on multiple radio stations. It seems like you're on this whirlwind ascent. What does it feel like to you? Is it such a whirlwind?
It is. I mean, the hunger never stops. So you're always looking for more. But when I sit back and as you say, I'm analyzing everything we've done, and when I put it on paper and read, everything that we actually have accomplished, it's very, very, very humbling, very inspiring, and I'm very grateful for it, knowing that there are unfortunately a lot of people doing what we're doing, and it might be a bit more of a struggle. Not that everything comes easy, but just very, very grateful for the progress we've made in the time span that we've got so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do when that period doubles up. If we can keep the trajectory going. So it's a very humbling experience, I'd say.
Yeah, and what would you credit your success to?
Oh damn. Not wanting to live a normal life.
Right. That's a very good one. All right.
I
Yeah.
understand the question correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And at this stage, so we'll dive into your early influences to give the listeners a sense of where you come from. So it's a bit of a tricky one to start with now, but can you remember your earliest musical memory?
Yeah. Funny enough, this is such a plot twist in ways because my dad and them were also musicians growing up, cover bands and whatnot. So I've always grown up with some rock and roll in the 80s and whatnot, but never really found my grip on that until much later. So I a lot of indie stuff, a lot of folk, a lot of acoustic work, and some pretty atmospheric stuff. Up until I was like maybe 16 or so, where I started diving back into the old influences. I'd say Fleetwood Mac's, your 70s, your 80s, a lot of Beatles. I had a huge Beatles phase. Not a lot of it is being shown in my work, but definitely Beatles and recently Stones, the Rolling Stones. So that's where it's kind of moved to.
You're definitely a fan of the classics. So it must have been great growing up in a house though with your father being a musician. And I suppose it was probably maybe predestined you were going to go down that route.
I mean, I never knew. At the start, I wanted to play drums, but I think that's just because any kid who looks at a band thinks like the clanging and banging looks like the most fun out of it all. But then taught some guitar. He taught me the guitar, and I remember it was a show that I watched on YouTube or on TV or whatnot, and I think it might have been Queen, and I saw the front man and I saw him running around and just bringing the people to life, and that to me was something that ignited something completely different. And then I knew, I want to be there in front. I want to see if I can create that impact and, bring the world together, or at least the world in me, at the shows. And that inspired it. So I think that's where the hunger started.
Yeah, you wouldn't actually believe how many musicians say to me that it was Freddie Mercury that started it all for them. During your teenage years then, what sort of music were you exposed to by your friends and your peers, and how do you think it affected the musician you are today?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I grew up in well, not unfortunately, no hate, but grew up in a time where pop music and rap music just took over. So there was a bit of irritation and annoyance with the fact that there was no diving deeper into music anymore. Not that there weren't good music being put out, but in my direct atmosphere, what I heard was a bunch of stuff that I didn't necessarily appreciate. So there was a part of me that went, you know what, let me see if I can do something that I like, that I put out there that feels a bit more than just the generic, 808 drum bass and some demeaning rap lyrics.
Yeah, you wanted something a bit deeper.
Yeah.
And what was your local music scene like growing up, and how does it compare to today?
The local music scene, I was never too exposed to that as a child, but I do know of, the cover bands that my dad played in, and I've heard him go to a few concerts like the Rasmus and 30 Seconds to Mars and whatnot. But locally, we don't have such a big scene. We have a bunch of pub gigs and all that jazz, but no huge festivals and stuff that I was exposed to, at least. I mean, there were a lot going on, but I've only been to 2 live shows in my life, I'd say.
Oh man. It's, the next question is going to have a short answer. So what concerts would you say have made you?
So the one that I can recall was most recently, I think it was early this year or last year's side, was the Lumineers, funny enough. Also a big influence about 2 years ago, just because I didn't have a band or anything, so I'd listened to a lot of their music as a solo artist. I hadn't been an artist yet, but telling myself that if I can make it with just an acoustic guitar, then at least there's potential. If you can do it with an acoustic guitar and rock it out, then you can do it great with a band as well. So the Lumineers definitely had a big influence, and I got the opportunity to go watch them. And the concert before that, I don't even think it was a major band. It was just something that my dad and them had taken me to, like a compilation of, like an end of year kind of bunch of bands just getting on the stage and doing some music.
Yeah. And when you're watching a band on stage, then are you able to totally switch off and just enjoy the experience? Or are you more so not critical, but are you watching them and like, oh, I could do that in my show? Or, are you learning from them?
There's a lot of envy in a healthy way, I'd say. There's I'd say there's two parts. Obviously, there's the appreciation for it and singing along, and you feel like a fangirl. But then there's that part that's like, damn it, I want that. Let's see if we can one day reach a point where we can incorporate something like this, and just appreciating the fact that now that I've been in a band and I know how challenging it could be to put up a good show, not just play the music, not just be tight, but put up an actual show. I'd say it was very inspiring to see, especially because the Lumineers are a folk band. You're not expecting necessarily, the whole shebang, but they put up the whole shebang and they totally blew me away. So very inspiring to see. Definitely very analytical from my side and trying to get some tips and tricks here. And yeah, just making notes for one day when we can.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to this now. Your shows, what are they like for people that haven't caught them? Give us the full experience if you can.
Oh, so I'd say at the start, I enjoyed playing guitar and whatnot. And obviously, doing some frontman guitaring, but slowly but surely, I very much started enjoying grabbing the microphone and call it Jagger influence, Mick Jagger's influence. Just running around, jumping. Same with Harry Styles as well. Very interactive with the crowd. I like to move. I'm not one of those. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not going to stand still and sing you the song. I'm going to come to you and engage. Me and my guitarist, we move around. We It's a very energetic show. There's a lot of movement, a lot of passion. Unfortunately, a lot of sweat, but depending on who minds. But yeah, and as much engagement as possible with the crowd. So yes, I also started writing for that. So that at the start there may be one or two slow songs that I wrote, and then I realized this is what we can do at live shows, and started writing for energy. So if I can sum it up in any way. In my own words, I just say the rock and roll fire is there.
Right. That's an interesting one you touched on, actually. How do you approach writing a song that will get people moving?
That's interesting. I would have to say it all starts with the BPM, the beat. I'd go, okay, so this feels like it can get people going. You get a do, or however fast you want it. But from there. And then also try and think of what feelings would be felt, and just trying to call it birth something, for lack of a better word, something that would get you going and moving. So bass line important. We've recently started dabbling with electronics as in synth and whatnot, but nothing too far out yet. And just keeping it very. You actually got me in a corner there. I'm not too sure how I approach the music that makes people move, but I just have to say whatever I'd want to see happen, I try and write. Which also have to keep an objective eye, obviously, because you can't just. Well, I mean, yeah, that has two parts. Music is subjective, but also you got to stay a little bit subjective if you want to write for the masses. Just my opinion.
No, you're definitely right there. You can't just keep writing music that you only want to listen to.
Yeah, fortunately, I've seen a handful of artists and whatnot who do that, and it is pretty, it is beautiful. But it could be limiting in terms of just for live show wise. It could be limiting. It's lovely on the record. You can close your eyes, you can listen to it, but you can't necessarily always translate that onto the stage.
Wouldn't be a very energetic show, I'd imagine. And your showmanship then, as the front man, how do you work on it?
I watch others. I try and watch as many people that inspire me as possible. So once again, Mick Jagger, Elvis, funny enough, in his 70s period. And these days, Harry Styles has been a huge influence, just in terms of the production and how he engages, how he dances, how he moves around. It's a very big, it's an inspiration. Definitely. Not that I'm trying to be a copycat or whatnot, but you analyze and you see what you can incorporate, or just what energy you can bring to them. But also in the rehearsal room, I'd say when we're when we're working on things, there's certain moments where you can say, "Oh, I can do that here, I can do that there," where it's clever, and then just trying to have the stamina to sing while doing it all.
What is it about the 70s Elvis though? I thought it would have been the 50s Elvis, where he was dancing and more energetic.
I'd say the 70s Elvis, where he did those concerts with the leather, those jumpsuits and whatnot, where he's throwing the power on. There's nothing wrong with the 50s, whatnot. I just can't shake my hips like he did.
Right.
But yeah,
Suppose
yeah.
there's a reason to call them Elvis the Pelvis.
Elvis the Pelvis.
And, out of all the gigs you've played then, is there one that you revisit in your mind as maybe the best experience you've had?
There's been, well, since, okay, so before we reached this point where we are now currently, there was a jam rock show back at home in South Africa. There's a little, well, not a little, but there's a theater called Jam Rock Theater. And that was our first huge stage platform where we were able to play. And I really enjoyed that because we want the energy so much, and we want that engagement. It can be very limiting and not discouraging, but a little off-putting when you've got a little space to work with. There's not much moving around and whatnot. So we got the opportunity to play at Jam Rock Theater. And although it's a sit-down venue, it wasn't people standing, not yet at least. It was still one of the most fun we've done, as well as there was one that we played at a little music festival called Some Sundays, where people were standing, and it's an outdoor festival, and we had the opportunity to open for one of the bigger local bands in our country, and that was also very, very inspiring. Out in the sun, just moving around, big stage as well. And but the main one that stood out to me is now that we've reached the last few days was in Hungary, the Veszprém Festival, the Keanan Eksteen Fest, something like that. I can't pronounce it yet. But biggest crowd I've ever seen, most engaging crowd I've ever seen, most impact we've ever had on a crowd, and just it was very, very eye-opening, very goosebump inducing, just something that I think changed my life a little.
Yeah. And to flip it around without naming names now, is there an experience you've had that you would say is maybe the worst, and how did you deal with it?
Yes. So our first European tour we went on was just me doing solo, just me and acoustic guitar. And by then we had just released the EP. So 6 songs we've got out there. By then we hadn't necessarily reached as many streams and all that jazz. So we decided to go through to Europe, which was an amazing experience, but also taking into consideration that being in Europe, knowing that you are not as well known, you got to take the risk and play the game either way. But there was one night at a club where we played the same night the Rolling Stones played. So only 2 or 3 people showed up. But nonetheless, I told myself that as heartbreaking as it could be, you got to swallow it up. And those people came to watch you. Give them the show of their life so that they don't forget you. So if it sucks to not see a crowd come to you, but you got to be realistic. You got to realize that it takes time to make that name, especially if you're going abroad.
Yeah, true. And at least now you can say you were on stage at the same time as the Rolling Stones. And the tour you mentioned there, it was a 13-stop 1-month tour of Europe with shows in Germany, France, and Austria. What was it like?
That was one of the most eye-opening experiences to date. Just because by then I had never been on a plane, I had never been outside of my country, and just to wake up and realize that you're now going onto a plane, you're going out of your country, not just for a holiday, not just to go to a business meeting, but to go do something that you love, and something that you're working on career-wise. That was amazing. Seeing all the cultures, seeing the architectures, that was something that stood out to me. The European architecture, the people are very accepting of accepting and loving of the music, whatnot. Whatever you played, there's always going to be someone. Whereas maybe it's a bit more limiting here at home. But all in all, very, very, very eye-opening experience, and that just increased the hunger and made the passion even more.
How did it come about? Because it's a major achievement. Like, it's not like driving 5 minutes down to the next town. It's a whole different continent.
Yeah, my manager, Jeremy Farber, he's also a producer and marketer, and yeah, you name it, he's doing it. Very very thankful for him. Without him, there'd be literally none of this. He saw me for the first time. He heard, I think my dad had sent a little voice note of me singing a song to a friend of his, and somehow, through the grapevine came about, and slowly we developed the music and whatnot. And yeah, fast forward, he made it possible along with our booking manager Jason Ling. He's the one that made it all possible for us to go abroad and just make it happen.
I have to ask, how do European audiences compare to South African audiences?
I'd say the European audiences is much more engaging. I'd say they're very 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 open to coming to the front, dancing. Afterwards, they come to you, and not that the South African audience is not, but it's just much more energy, much more excitement. But then again, it also depends on who I was back then playing for South Africa and who I am now. So the impact you make, I'd say, will be the deciding factor for how the crowd and different people across continents respond to the music. But all in all, I can't say good or bad of either. But yeah, there's a certain energy to the European audiences that just is very flattering.
And venue-wise, then, is there much of a difference? I suppose the main one is probably there's more venues.
Yes, unfortunately, we do in Cape Town, where we do stay. There's only a handful of places you can play without becoming the every Thursday night pub gig. So it is a bit limiting, but there are still a few that we can nail down. But it's just a matter of finding a route that you can, because now you gotta cycle it out, and you can't just play that same venue the whole time, even though it's great, but it's going to get washed out. So Europe definitely has much more. I mean, you travel by train for an hour, and then you've got a whole new town with 10 new clubs. Whereas with South Africa, you've got maybe 10 clubs in Cape Town, and then maybe you've got to go to Joburg for. But so I'd say in back home, the goal would be to try and target as many festivals, because there's one or two going on where you can really make it, but just getting your head in there is a bit difficult due to also not being an Afrikaans artist, the home language we speak. A lot of the big festivals tend to be for Afrikaans, and also a lot of the festivals tend to be trance and house and electronic music related. So here in Europe, there's just much more opportunity for true, not true music, no, yeah, just rock and roll. There's a lot more opportunity.
Yeah. And when it comes to showtime, the moments before you go on stage, how do you psych yourself up? Then when you come off stage, how do you calm down?
So the psyching up, there's a little bit of physical to it. It's like, jumping around, shaking out the hands. Me and my guitarist occasionally do a push up or two. But it's just that you use the butterflies that come, and you use that adrenaline to feed you, and just checking out the crowd beforehand through the curtain, seeing the excitement building up. But I'd say it starts the week of already. If you're playing a gig that Friday, that entire week you're burning to see what's going to happen. So psyching myself up would just be seeing if I can do better than I did at the last show. And show goes on. We do the show, and coming down. The unwinding, I try not to focus on that. I just try and keep that high. Take some pictures if there are people who want to take pictures, shake some hands, and then thank those who come to appreciate it. But just ride the wave for as long as possible until you rest your head to sleep.
Right. And you do go to sleep, you wake up the next morning, it's kind of back to reality. How do you deal with that feeling?
It's like, sometimes it's like it never happened. It's like I can see the pictures. There's some videos. There's proof that it was there. But where's the next one?
I've heard that. All right, don't think about the one that's past. Just look to the next one.
Yeah.
And when it comes to your career, how do you measure success?
That's a difficult one. I'd say in a few different ways. Obviously, realistically, we got to measure it by these days, views and streams and the reaction of the world. But to me personally, if I can just make it to a big stage and play for the world, then I'd have died a happy man. Even if we're not making billions and millions and whatnot, just to to be able to play for as big a crowd and make an impact on someone's life. I mean, the other day, now that last show, that Veszprem show that I mentioned to you, we played a show and there was someone that had only started listening to our music a while back, and I saw in the crowd that when the specific song was Golden Fever, actually, we started playing that, she burst out into tears of joy. It was like trembling, shaking, and that to me was a moment where I was like, if I fall down, drop to my face right now and don't wake up, I'm happy.
That's worth more than anything else when it comes to your career, I feel. As long as you're touching people like that and getting a response, Yeah. And what are some other items left on your bucket list that you want to achieve when it comes to your career?
Definitely a stadium gig. I mean, I'm sure that's something you get a lot. Everyone wants to play a stadium, but just to get out there and see the crowd, it's that and just to produce as much music as we can and feel, like inspiration comes, let's make it up, let's put it out there. Let's not limit ourselves to anything or anyone. Just to whatever comes up, we want to grab and go for. Very vague. There's nothing specific that I can pinpoint to, but just going.
Gotcha. I gotcha. And say 10, 20 years down, well, you're only 22, so maybe 20 or 30 years down the line, would you like to stay behind the mic, or would you prefer to maybe move behind a desk and go into producing?
I wouldn't say that that's something that I wouldn't mind writing a song or two for someone, but I feel kind of selfish in a way. If I'm bringing something to life, I want to put it out there. Just get that appreciation and recognition for the talent that you have, because for a long time, during school days and whatnot, you'd play music and whatnot, and people wouldn't necessarily bat an eye. So just to know that I'm putting it out there means the world. Someone the recognition of it, just to be heard. But I definitely say if my voice and my body and still allows it, I still want to be behind the mic. But then again, me and my producer do sit behind the desk. So it's not that I don't enjoy the producing side of it. It's just I don't see myself necessarily becoming a guy behind the desk producing for others, unless it's a passion project, unless it's something fun that we're doing, just messing around or whatnot. But officially, I want to stay on that stage.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Now, your future plans. I know there's a European tour. Lay it all out first.
Yeah, so we started on the 17th. We landed up in Frankfurt, and we've got a 11-stop show this time. So we did now 4 days in Veszprem, one for each day, and now we've got Germany, all over Germany left. So we've got Berlin, Munich, and a bunch of little clubs, and there's also 1 or 2 more festivals that we can play, which I'm very grateful for. Like as I said, just having that opportunity to be on a nice platform, very big crowd, engaging. So yeah, we're going strong until we return home, and then we're going to try and do what we can there as well. As I said, with that cycle, try and get into those festivals and just trying to play as much and release as much as we can to become an earworm.
I see. And I feel like this European tour is almost going to become like a yearly thing. Is there any stops that you really would like to hit next time?
Realistically, the Budapest Festival. So we've discovered that the people we're playing at with this Veszprem show, they own the Budapest Festival. So there's definitely a hunger. We'd love to play both again. But there's realistically, for now, taking into consideration the growth and the progress and everything, without saying, give me Glastonbury, which is on the list. But that I'd say the Budapest Festival for next year would definitely be on the list.
Nice. Right, at this stage, so we'll dive into the last couple of questions. Everybody gets these, I'm afraid, so you can't get off the podcast till you answer. If you could see any musician or band from history in concert for one night only, who would it be?
That's a good one. Probably Mercury or the Stones, but then also Fleetwood Mac. Nice. 3 of them. Yeah.
Not bad. And if you didn't work in the music industry, what would you be doing?
That's an interesting one. I try and I always say I'm a man of diversity. So I there's a lot of interests, but also you got to follow the passion. So there was a part of me that thought, maybe you can become a businessman, maybe you can do this and that. But performance is in the blood. So I'd say probably head over to the movies, see if I can make it over there.
Not a bad one. Not a bad one at all. And this is an odd one now. If you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Oh, that's a nice one. Keith Richards.
I like the quickness and the response.
I've thought about that for a while. That he looks like he's got a lot of wisdom, a lot of stories to tell. So that would be something that definitely would be eye-opening for me.
Be a very dangerous 24 hours, though, I feel.
He seems to have cleaned up a little bit, but yeah.
Good one. And the final one. So, what song would appear on the soundtrack to your life?
Yeah, I've thought about that quite a while. In the end of the movie, in the beginning of the movie, that's a nice one. I've got so many that I've thought about, because to me the music is always, I'm picturing it as a scene of something. But if I had to, off the bat, just pick a song, I'm probably going to regret saying this and think of something better after this. Rocks Off from the Rolling Stones.
Right. What is it about that song that speaks to you?
It's the lyrics. It's more like, can you handle it when you reach the top, and how it goes from there. Some people, because I'm so curious to see how things are going to go. It's just that also the energy, it speaks to me in a way. It feels like a proper end of movie thing. If things, it could go both ways, it could go good, bad, but the song applies either way. And just to know, could we handle it when we get to where we want to get?
Perfect. Has to be that one. So listen, Keenan, I've really enjoyed it now. It's been great. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here. I hope to speak soon again.
Trying hard not to let it all out, trying to make it all seem worthwhile. Never really know what it's all about, but I just can't help when I see you smiling. Make it last, make it big, make it rain. Watch the drops falling down on the window pane. Something else that I used to see you with me in between, but lady, would we ever be? I feel you in this empty space, early in the morning, babe. Is it really worth the fame when she's standing in the pouring rain? 'Cause I need you here, need you to see me, dear. And I see it all, but you watch me fall. Hold on. Sing those gentle words you say to me, play to me, sing to me, lie to me. You're never gonna die, see. And even though you can't see through the tears and the dreams and the years, they fade. Just take my hand, let's just try to understand, try to come up with a plan to fall down. I'd feel you in this empty space, early in the morning, babe. Is it really worth the fame when she's standing in the pouring rain? hold on. Fall down, fall down, fall down.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up to Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.